I'm here with Lucy Firmingham, who's a teacher at a prep school of Latin, and is also Bettany Hughes' personal assistant. So I'm sure we'll get to find out a little bit more about that in a minute. So Lucy, would you like to first of all maybe tell us a little bit about your previous work in classics and what your experiences have been?
Okay, well, I was lucky enough to do both languages at school, so I had all that before I went off to university. Then when I got to St Andrews, I sort of did, a nice broad range of subjects, focusing in on reception studies quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, sort of looked at sort of reception within the ancient world. And then once I got to King's for my Masters in London, I then sort of really focused in on reception, sort of modern reception studies.
Okay, such as?
On film. Rome on film was a course I did, which was really, really interesting.
Oh, fantastic. So what kinds of things were you looking at in that?
A nice big timescale, and ended up with things like Gladiator, which was was quite nice because I actually got to sort of do, well, what I guess film studies, just films, film studies in general courses would be like anyway, because we looked a little bit at CGI and what I brought to films, things like that. Gladiator was supposed to sort of, well, obviously in the Colosseum, looking at there's a book out called Bread and Circuses about corruption and the fact that if you keep the public happy, then with games and stuff, then it's okay. And it was sort of looking at perhaps whether that happens a little bit in society now, in America, here.
I see.
And what?
So really, they're looking at the spectacle.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
And Gladiator itself, of course, is a big spectacular film.
Yeah, that was the plan. It sort of worked in two ways. You were looking at something that was a spectacle in the ancient world, but it was a film that was about this spectacle. But at the time when it was made as well, it was, some of the stuff they did, like creating the Colosseum. I think that was a spectacle in itself.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And sort of gave it another edge. So.
And you're also working on kind of Harry Potter as well, is that right?
That was one of the things I touched on. Yeah, I wasn't very popular for that one.
But why did you choose Harry Potter? Because it's not maybe obviously classical. So what were you?
Well, really? It's good. I read the books, away from classical.
Me too, I should admit. Maybe not on camera, but anyway.
And every theme I came to, and I just saw classics in it. I mean, what I concentrated on was actually Homeric epic in Harry Potter, and I think you get to a point where maybe you start looking for it. But actually, that was one of the things I argued in my dissertation was that doesn't really matter whether it wasn't there originally. Does it actually mean that you can't get some enjoyment out of reading different things into the text?
So what is the relationship between Harry Potter and Homeric epic?
I had to sort of whittle it down to a couple of things. I looked at the hero character and how Harry was a very different hero to, say, Achilles, and what that maybe said about our society compared to the society that Achilles was in, and those stories were, such common knowledge.
Yeah, so looking at the relationship between classics and children's literature, has any of that helped you, in particular like Harry Potter, has that helped you then to communicate with your classroom?
I think so. I used it as my opening class.
Great way of getting the students' interest straight away.
Yeah, I think it worked on the younger ones. I think the year 8s were a bit, Harry Potter's not very cool.
Yeah, it's not cool, is it?
Yeah. So it didn't work quite so well with them. But the year 6s who are... it's been quite nice because I was a new teacher at the school and they're new to the subject then. Yeah. And I think all of them came in with preconceptions, like people had said to them, it's a dead language, and you're going to find it really difficult, and it doesn't apply to anything now. And we had a good old discussion about myths in Harry Potter and how the spells are in using Latin and things. And then I branched out into other films and even looked at sort of Latin and business names and product names, and they really liked that. And you could see that they were actually thinking, well, yeah, that there is a reason we're doing this. This is really fun.
Right. So in a way, the language you kind of brought it to attention how the language of Latin is all around us, and hence
Yeah.
also the kind of the ideas
Yeah,
as well.
and I think it really did sort of get them on side, and well, we've had a parents' evening recently, and the feedback was really good. All the parents saying they're coming home and saying we really enjoy Latin, and which is really good. Sort of 6 weeks in, and they've just done their exams, and you know their marks were really good. They've really the bit of grammar that we've done, they've really got into it, and you know, really listened, and I think having that, you know, being able to have days where we do maybe sort of talk about a theme from Harry Potter, which is, you know, we're not going through grammar all the time, vocab all the time. It's a way of keeping them interested, keeping them learning, and
keep them on board, and
yeah,
I
because
guess
I think that's half the battle at that age. Really, it's really good because I hadn't wanted to teach. You know, I'd not done any training for it or anything, and the tutoring had been a way of you know, getting a bit of extra cash whilst I was doing my masters. So yeah, it's
a big
good.
surprise for you, and yet it seems to be working really well.
And it is difficult at times, but I do find myself coming away from it and actually you saying things to us and thinking, well, actually you're smiling and you're laughing, so you're clearly enjoying this.
I think that's key. If you make it enjoyable, then the students are going to want to learn, aren't they?
Yeah.
And learn more as a result.
Yeah, particularly at that age, because they're only 10 years old.
Yeah.
And so...
you're creating this cohort of Latin enthusiasts at
I hope
the
so.
age of 10.
I hope so.
And that links quite nicely to your kind of other job, which is PA to Bethany Hughes.
Yeah.
Who, of course, has been in the news recently precisely for talking about the importance of and the enjoyment of having Latin in schools.
Yeah.
So what kinds of work have you been doing with her?
All sorts, really, actually. I work freelance for her. I'm not there all the time. But it's been... I think she's very much appreciates that I'm... You know, I'm a classicist, but I'm not sort of a... You know, I haven't got loads of... You know, I haven't got my PhD or I don't lecture or anything. So I feel very much at the start of what I hope will be... I'd like to have an academic career, but I'd like to do this sort of television work and...
Engagement with the broader constituency.
And it's I sort of at the beginning of this year was like, well, which direction do I go in at the moment? Would it be best to go and do the PhD now? Or would it be best to try and you know, try and get into the sort of media side of it now? And it's not an easy industry to get into, and I don't think it helps with sort of the sort of current economic climate either.
Yeah.
But she's been. Yeah, I mean, I've helped with her new book, and
which is on
Socrates. It's called The Hemlock Cup.
Oh, I think
I know
I've
I'm biased, but it's very good. So I got to do, you know, kind of little snippets of a research for that, and then I did the permissions. Actually, I had to ring round all the publishers and go, please can we use your translation or blah blah blah.
Oh, great. So you really see the kind of the inside track.
Yeah, and that was all through the publishers as well. So because I'd love to write some books one day, and you suddenly appreciate all these, you know, these tiny little things that you know, they take a lot of time to get them sorted out. And then I helped with some of the publicity, it's, you know, the launch party and everything. So that was all really good and really relevant to what I want to do eventually. And then with the filming, I've been on 2 location shoots now.
Great. So what kind of filming has she been doing?
What was the first one for? I think the first one was for Channel 4. I think it was for the Ancient World series.
Okay.
I think it was that one. And, you know, I do sort of the runner jobs at the moment, like keeping the crowd out of the way and getting copies and stuff. But, you know, everyone has to start at the bottom. And it's really good, the opportunity to do it. And also to stay in classics. You know, I'm not just...
It's all related.
Yeah. And then, where were we the other day? We were at the V&A and at a church the other day. Yes, you know, you get to see all the different people that make up the team that get these programmes going and everything.
That's really interesting to kind of get the behind the scenes look.
And it's also, you know, given me a chance to whittle it down to exactly which bit I want to to do and concentrate on at the moment, which means it's a lot easier trying to apply for
Yeah.
for work experience and for jobs eventually. So
That's really interesting, Lucy. Thank you very much for coming along to speak to us today, and I hope that
that's right.
you'll join us again in the future at some point to let us know how things are going.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.